since that job is done, we'll turn our attention to the underlugs. 4 underlugs. So they're basically little projections. That'll be inserted into the dovetails in the bottom of the barrel. And then pins will go through those projections, sort of like a tenon in furniture making, to hold the barrel to the stock or the stock to the barrel, however you want to look at it. So these currently require a little bit of fitting by hand, not too much, but a little bit. In the future, we'll probably make some adjustments, so they might be a little closer, might require no fitting like the sights, or might actually be installed, I'm not sure. But we probably will make some adjustments to these underlugs. They're very good now, but sometimes people struggle a little bit with them, so we're always looking for ways to make things a little easier. So we need to see if these will fit in the dovetail just like the sights. So it won't start. That means that the dovetail's a little on the small side. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to file off any burrs that are on this thing. And then file a little bit of lead. Okay. So now we're ready to look at it and see. And it won't go in. It's close. It's probably, I guess within maybe 10 thousandths or so. Now these are shallow dovetails, which is good. You want shallow dovetails. So we're going to open up the dovetail a little bit in width, but not depth. And in order to do that, the best way is to use a file that has what's called safe edges. So it's a triangular file, 60-degree angles. And there's no teeth on the side that we can put along the bottom. That way it won't cut any deeper, no teeth. But if I put it along the bottom and push to the side, carefully, it'll cut. This also comes to a nice sharp corner. So you don't want to use a file that's real coarse. You want to use something that comes to a nice sharp corner. So we're going to use this file to open up the dovetail and install it on this underlug. The second underlug, I'll probably show you another way where we can just file the end of the underlug down a little bit. So we got options. So let's go ahead and do this one first. So I'm holding it down in the dovetail, but not cutting any deeper. Okay, we took a little bit, now we're going to try it. So it's just thinking it wants to go, but it's not quite enough. Go a little more. Okay, it's starting to go. Just go a tiny bit more. I think we'll have it. Okay. So again, we're going to install these at the pretty good. Now, we're centering it by eye. And if it should be loose, sometimes you file a little too much and it ends up being loose. It happens. I just had this chisel that's ground like that. You could use a screwdriver as well. Just a screwdriver. The idea is to come along this edge and tap down and clinch the material down on the dovetail should it be loose. So this was pretty tight. We're going to go ahead and do it anyway. Just come along this edge. Punch it down. There we go. So that's installed. Now we're going to do the next one. We're going to try a different method for the next one. First thing we're going to do is again get rid of any burrs that may be there. Give ourselves a little lead. So this time we're going to try to hold this in the vise, and we're going to file this dovetail angle a little bit. Let's give it a go. This isn't the best vise to hold something like this, but we'll give it a try. Okay. So now I'm just going to use a file, something like a pillar file would be a great choice for this. I don't know if I have one over here. I do. There's a pillar file. We'll use it. Now we could use just a mill file too. And the idea is just to keep it flat, but just decrease the size of it a little bit. So let's give that a go. I like to use my optivisors when I file because I can't see real well. So. If we go too far, let's give it a try. Okay, that's starting. It's looking pretty good. Just a tiny bit more, I think, and we'll have it. Okay, get rid of any burr on the bottom. It should go in. Okay. You don't want these to go in so tight that you have to drive them in really heavily, because if you do, it can actually, the combination of all four can actually impart a force, some stress on the bottom of the barrel, and kind of want to make it bow and spring, which you don't want to have happen. So you want them to go in, but not super tight. Now that went in a little well, but just a little on the loose side. So I'm again going to center it up. Use this tool here. Oh, actually, we'll use a screwdriver this time, just see if we can do it with it. So if you don't have a chisel, we can see if the screwdriver will work. Okay, and that should be fine. That clinches the metal on it a little tighter and good to go. I actually think that may work better than my chisel. So let's do this one. We'll do it the way we did the first time here, if I can find my file. There we go. Get it done quick here. The key with all this kind of work when you're trying to make speed is to know how far to go. You want to go fast, go as fast as you can while it's safe, and then slow down. So it's a lot of judgment. But when you're just getting started, it just doesn't hurt just to take your time either. So I predict that's close, but I don't think it's quite enough. Okay, it is. It's in there pretty good. I'm centering it up by eye. Go ahead and clench that down again. Probably an old screwdriver would be better than using one of your good ones. Okay, that's good. So we've got one more to do. I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera, and then I'll show you how to file these down and prepare them for going into the stock. So, okay, so we installed the last underlug, and now we need to trim them flush with the side of the barrel. So in order to do that, we will just use a mill file. Actually, mill file is a single cut file. I'm going to run it along the edge. See, that one's centered. Looks good enough, I guess. So we want nothing to stick over the edge. Come on. Now this vise is kind of unusual in that the jaws pivot and leather lined, so it'll grab a barrel like this, which your vise probably won't. You'll need to prop it up with something. Say that, it starts to slip. Okay, that's good. Flip it around here. That's good. Come on, baby. Okay, that's good. Two more. Okay, looks good. So if you look, you can see they're filed flush with the side of the barrel. Now, I want to make mention of the fact these underlugs are a little tall. See, all these are the same height. All these underlugs are the same height. In some locations may be a little taller than they need to be to fit in the stock properly. So ordinarily now I would file them down because I know, how they need to be trimmed, but if you put them in the stock, you can see if they extend too far into the ramrod channel or the ramrod groove for that, or the ramrod hole for that matter. So let's go ahead and just put it in the stock and I'll show you that aspect. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to get the stock. So the ramrod out. Come on. I like to take a file and go into the grooves just a little bit, or the mortises, just to take off any burrs and open them up just a tiny bit so the underlug will slip in there a little easier. Sure that'll fit. Should be fine. Okay, so look at this one. Same with it. This is just a little file. Just open them up just a touch. This will probably be something I'll do as well. I'll make some adjustments and open this up a little bit just so it's has a little more room to breathe. Just make assembly just a little easier. I think before too much time passes, I'll also work to include slots in the underlug so you won't have to drill the holes for the pins or slot them, which will be a big improvement. Okay, a couple more here. Final one. Okay, let's take the barrel and put it in stock, and you can see what we need to trim. Get up there. There it goes. Get started there, buddy. Okay, take a mallet. It's turned a little more humid here the last few days, and things are fitting just a little tighter. We have air conditioning. We try to control the moisture in the shop here, but we hadn't turned on the air conditioning until just now, because it is a little humid in here. I can tell with the way the barrel's fitting in the stock. Okay, so underlugs are fitting in the wood, but they stick out a little bit. So we're going to trim them so they don't stick out. That includes the underlug back here. You can't see because it's going to stick into the barrel channel a little bit. So we're going to trim them until they're flush with the ramrod groove or the ramrod hole, excuse me. So let's go ahead and pull this back out. A little snug here. Once we draw file the barrel, it'll loosen up a little bit. Okay, put the stock over here. So we're going to trim these down a little bit.
About how much are you trimming off of that one that you can't see?
I should have measured to see how much I was trimming off, but I can give you a final. This is just by eye because I've done a number of these. I know what it looks like. We'll get a measurement. And it should be good. A little more here. Plenty. Okay, so we'll measure here. So the height, approximate height from the barrel, not the underlug base, from the barrel to the top on this, it's about 135 thousandths of an inch. So these require less to be removed. Should be pretty good for those. Put the burrs off. Okay, we'll get a quick measurement on this. I'm gonna guess 150 thousandths, 160 thousandths. Yeah, about 145 or 50 thousandths, something like that. last two. This one here requires a little less too. Let's call that 150,000. Should be fine. That's about 150. So we made these underlugs all the same, machined them all the same, just because I'm trying to keep from having so many different parts, but I think we probably will in the future make a different underlug for each location so there's less work in fitting them. Okay, final one, front one. This one needs a little more removed, so around about 135,000 for it. Okay, that's about it. Okay, these should go in the stock fine. Okay, you can see they don't really stick into the channel at all. They're pretty much flush. So that's what we're after. Now I see one thing that I'm going to adjust, and I always want to make sure there's a little bit of a gap on either side of the underlug. Some has a little gap here, a little more up there, a little gap there. As the stock changes in humidity, it will move back and forth. And this stock seems like it's kind of expanded a little bit, but I just want to make sure that it always has room to move fore and aft. So I'm going to take just a little bit more out of these bottom areas. Okay. And the safe way to do this is to use a little file, a little square file. I often use a drill if I do it, but that's a little more dangerous. So I'd recommend using a little square file if you have one, or even a round file would work. See what I can find in my pile of mess here. I know I shouldn't pile files up, but it just happens sometimes. There's a nice square file somewhere in this mess. Maybe it's not in the mess here. We'll go ahead and just use a coarsest round file, see if we can do it with that. Okay, that's looking fine. Come on. Okay, that should be just fine now. So let's put the barrel back in. Move on. So when you're installing these things, you don't want to force them in. You want to make sure they go in without a lot of pressure, or else you conceivably could split the stock. You don't want that to happen. Okay, go ahead and put the bolts in. Well, first, let's take a look at them. Looks better. We have a little room on either side, so that looks fine. Okay, now let's move on to put the bolts back in to hold the barrel in place. Somewhere here. That's that one that was tight. You gave me trouble last time. Okay, screwdriver. Okay, so we're good there. So now we have to drill holes through the underlugs that match up with these pinholes in the stock. And those are what holds the stock and the barrel together. So let's go ahead and get at it. There's different ways you can accomplish this. It's good to clamp it. You can just take your drill bit, stick it through the hole, a little shorter here, and drill it. And we'll go ahead and do that on this one here. So I want to try to make sure that it's straight up and down and not going to wallow out that hole. Okay, we did pretty good. We didn't bring up much sawdust, and I didn't go all the way through either. I just stopped it when it went through the steel. But the danger when you're doing this, sometimes you could wallow out that hole, which isn't necessarily a great thing. So this next one we're going to do a little different. It's clamped up here again in the vise. We're going to put it in here. We're just going to spot it good, and then we'll pull it out. Do that with the other ones, and we'll drill it outside the stock. See how that works out. Okay. Pull this sucker out again. Finish those holes. The center's sticking still a little bit, not too bad. Okay. This hole goes all the way through on this one. Okay. However, this one is just dotted, just spotted. So now we're going to take the spotted one and drill all the way through. Hold up the vise. Drill. Start it in there and continue on through. Now, it's well enough there. We'll go through. Okay. One more. Okay, now we could put this in the stock, put pins in, and they'll line up. But what we like to do is, it's a good idea to elongate these holes, because the wood, as moisture changes, as the moisture content in the environment changes, the wood can expand and contract. Also, as the barrel heats up and cools down, it can move as well. And if there isn't room for the stock and the barrel to move independently, stresses can develop, and it can actually change your impact, point of impact. So it's good to elongate these holes that we drilled. To do that, we're going to use a jeweler's saw, which we showed previously, I believe. So what we're going to do is we're going to open this up. I'd like to make one note also that the more curl that is present in the forestock area, the more expansion you're going to see. Straight grain wood doesn't really move a great deal along the grain, but curl sets up a cross grain situation, and you do get much more expansion and contraction with curly wood. If you're just using straight grain wood, maybe a piece of walnut, a piece of cherry, you're probably not likely to see a problem. And interestingly enough, original guns rarely ever had this done. I remember seeing a French pistol from the late 17th century that had it done. It was burl stock, but it's very, very uncommon. So, but it's something that we do, on fine rifles today all the time. I'm going to thread this jeweler's saw blade up through the hole. Okay. Now I'm going to tighten it up. And the idea is I'm going to cut a little bit to make this into sort of an oval. Doesn't need to be a lot. And you can turn as you get to the end of your cut, and hopefully not break the blade. Okay, so now we got one side of it done. We're going to do the other side here, same position. Okay, now I'm going to start turning. Okay, so we have a slot. It's pretty good. The way we test it is we take a pin, actually no burrs on the end of it, stick it in here and see if it'll slide. This is almost a complete slot, but the pin doesn't slide. I'm getting a little needle file in there and open it up. Again, in my unorganized array of files here. If I can find one. A good one right there. Maybe, maybe not. Okay, very close. Should work now. Still a little snug. This file has had it. Okay, now it moves back and forth. Full length of the slot, so we're good to go. So I'll duplicate that process on the others. Now, one note is that you need more of a slot at the underlug nearest the muzzle than you do at the breech, because there's so much less wood and metal that can expand at that point. So I sometimes tend to make them progressively longer as you approach the muzzle. Okay, so I won't show slotting the other 3 on camera. I'll go ahead and do that, and then I'll bring you back. Okay, so I took the time to elongate the pinholes for all the lugs. So we're ready to put this back in the stock and install the pins then. Let's get the tang bolts in. Okay, now we will cut some pins to pin the barrel in place. So again, we just take our pin stop. Looks like I need to grab another piece. We'll see how far it'll go. One. So I need one more piece here. So here's some more. And this stuff is music wire is what it is. And it ordinarily is quite springy, so I temper it back a little bit, bring it up to 900 degrees, and it makes it soft enough that you can file the stuff and cut it with regular side cutters. That's good for that one. There we go. That's good. Okay, need to get these all filed. Make sure there's no burrs on these when you try to put them in. It's pretty problematic. Okay, just tap in place. Okay, so that's done. And the final thing we're going to do here, make sure the ramrod will go in. Again. No problem. So, the gun is basically complete. We'd want to cut off the pins. I can demonstrate on one how I'd go about that process. I always leave them long until you know the build is basically complete, because they're easier to take in and out. So you want them to be flush or just below the surface. So I'm going to pull this one out and feel in the backside here. So just below the surface or flush. And then I like to mark it. I used to use this little 3-corner file to mark it. And you can pull it out, cut it. Watch your eyes. Out flat. Around the end. And you're good to go. You do that to all of them. And where the stock curves, you know, just make them the length equal to the shortest distance, because the pinholes are on an arc. So just make them so they don't stick above the stock, basically. If they're a little below the surface, that's fine. That's good. Okay, so now one of the final things we'll do is we'll flush up any wood that might stick above the stock. Sometimes the wood is a little proud of, the butt plate. So any wood that sticks above the metal parts, we'll flush that up. By flush it up, I mean file it or sand it down. So we'll use a file or even a real fine rasp. This is a real fine rasp, but file will work just as good. or even coarse paper around a sanding block will work great too. No problem with that. You don't want the wood to stick above the metal parts. That's pretty close. I'm going to go ahead and move to a file now. So I'm keeping the contour of the stock. I'm not just rounding it off at the end either. I'm trying to blend it forward a little bit. Okay, we're good to go. Try the other side here. Make sure we're good to go there. Now it's all nice and even and good. Same thing at the comb. Looks good. Same with tang. The tang is just slightly below the surface. Not a lot, but just slightly. It's actually good. Okay, about perfect. Blend it in, roll it off. Okay, that looks nice. So we would do the same with the trigger guard if the wood sticks above the trigger guard, which the front of the trigger guard is a tiny bit low. So what I would do there is I'd pull out the pins and file this down a little bit, blend it in. I'll go ahead and demonstrate it. It'll take a second. Okay, so I'll take the file again. And your stock may or may not need this in various areas. Usually it's fairly consistent, but sometimes they do vary at least a little bit. So. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Look here and looks great. Pins back in it. It's going to lock back in it. off bolt. I think that'll about wrap up this video. I would like to mention we have other videos that pertain to polishing the metal parts, draw filing the barrel, that is getting the metal parts prepared for metal finishing. We have videos talking about preparing the wood and staining and finishing the wood as well. We may add to this series and make some more videos specifically dealing with the mountain rifle and finish the mountain rifle out. But for now, this will be all. And if you have any questions or anything, please let us know. Thank you.